God damn it, I wanted this movie to be good, like desperately. It has an interesting story about addiction and family trauma cycles. It takes place in a city block, which is a far different vibe to the usual spooky rural house area. And it has one of my favorite crazy performances of the year in white trash Glenn Close. Like, the things they made Glenn Close say in this fucking movie was on par with some of World Star's greatest hits. So this had all the potential to be like an absolute force of a horror movie. It never pulls the trigger, ever. Like, there is a fantastic, scary, and disturbing scene involving two of the kids in this movie. And when it happened, I was like, holy fuck. This movie is going to be nuts. Like, we are onto something here. Lee Daniels, let's fucking go. And then nothing close to that level ever happens again in the movie. Like, which sucks, because it's almost more annoying than just having to sit through a shit movie. Because at least in a shit movie, you're sort of used... If it's all the same level, you're like, okay, this is trash. Like, I'm sort of getting ready to turn off here. But this danced on the edge of being really fucking good so many times, and then didn't. So you're left going, fuck, like, it was right there. It was right there. You could have done it. And it's not because Lee Daniels is a bad filmmaker. He's a fucking fantastic filmmaker. Precious is great. The Butler's fantastic. But it's like he just doesn't have the horror chops to pull it off or something. It's the same problem I had with Cobweb, and to a much lesser extent, Immaculate earlier this year. You know, when you've got really high highs and then low lows, the movie, it makes it worse than just being like a flat shit movie, to be honest. It's, like I said, this is directed by Lee Daniels. The Deliverance follows a family in Indiana. Mother Ebony, played by Andra Day, is a recovering alcoholic with a history of violence, likely stemming from her atrocious treatment at the hands of her mother Alberta, played by Glenn Close. Berta has since found God and is undergoing treatment for cancer. So Ebony is sort of struggling with, you know, balancing her kid's school life, caring for her mum, and even putting up with her mum. And it often results in it results in her, like, emotionally and physically abusing her kids, which is it's pretty rough to watch in this movie. Like, there are some scenes where you're like, Jesus Christ, lady. The youngest kid in the family, Dre, starts talking to an unseen presence, which he calls Trey, and shit gets wild and, unfortunately, very cheesy from there. Now, I like to think of the positive side of things. I try to find the good in every movie. Let's talk about the strengths of this movie. The illustration of the family ties and drama in this movie is intriguing as hell. They don't just hand you the backstory to all these characters. They make you work them out. Like, you work it out through how they interact with other characters, what they say to each other, what the contextual clues are. And Lee Daniels is great at family dramas. So no surprises, that's where the strength of this movie is. If you like tea, there's fucking plenty of it here for you. And a big part of why this movie is so good is that Lee Daniels, he writes realistic dialogue. Like, some of the intentionally funny parts of this movie had me fucking howling. There are some very funny parts that are supposed to be funny in this movie, and they're very good. And the acting's really decent from the kids and from Andra Day. Like, solid, nothing crazy, but solid. Like, I don't really fault them there. But the star of this is 100% Glenn Close. Like, she's 77 years old now. She is full trailer trash here. She is full trailer trash. She is dressed up like a chain-smoking cougar from hell. And she just does wild shit in this fucking movie, man. And, you know, this is Academy Award nominated Glenn Close. So seeing her roll around on the floor and talk about knocking bitches' teeth out, and it's just, she's trying to bang nurses. It's just, I just love the wackiness of her performance. It's Nick Cage-esque. Like, she's going, this is the craziest I've ever seen her. The shit they make her say in this movie, I would never thought I would have seen Glenn Close say. So that's a big plus for me. But, as I said in the intro, the weakest part of this movie is the fucking horror. It's a horror film with shit horror. It's cheesy in like a Lifetime movie sort of way, which sucks because it starts off as good horror. Like, the kids do some really disturbing shit in this movie. There are bad smells. There's one reference to Blair Witch, or at least I assume it's Blair Witch. There's lots of flies, like a Stephen King film. But then it just goes full like unintentional D-movie horror. Like, Lee Daniels is a hell of a filmmaker. I'll say that again. But you can see that this is his first horror, and in a year of great horror, this sticks out like dog's balls. The CGI is fucking terrible. And, you know, while I get that part of the story is that these characters are flawed and there is intergenerational trauma, you don't really like Ebony, as you see her being abusive to her kids, like physically and emotionally abusive to her kids. And at some point they sort of try to set up that child safety is the bad guy here, but at some point you're like, fuck man, Child Protective Services should get involved here. She's fucking hitting her kids. And also, as much as I love Glenn Close's performance, her character is fucking awful to Ebony, and obviously a large part of why she is the way she is. So if you don't really fall in love with the kids, you got no one to root for in this movie. You don't really give a fuck. That being said, there are points of this movie that drift into so bad it's good territory just because of the wild shit that they get Glenn Close to say. I'm telling you, there are fucking... I'll say it again, there are wild lines in this movie. So, but apart from that, like, unless you want to get drunk or high with your mates and chuck on this and just laugh at the insane shit that goes on, this is not really worth your time. There is so much good horror out there, especially at the moment. There is so much good horror out at the moment. I don't want you to waste an hour and 40 minutes on this film unless you want to laugh at the bad bits and amazing Glenn Close dialogue. Amazing in a bad way, Glenn Close dialogue. It's a toughie. It's a fucking toughie. Because when a good horror goes to Netflix, everyone gets to see it, but unless you like bad horrors, this ain't the one. I recommend watching this if you like movies that are so bad they're almost good. Stuff like Leprechaun, Jack Frost, Thanksgiving, that sort of shit. This is borderline this. If you want to hear ghetto Glenn Close, once again, she's the highlight of this movie. She's threatening to knock bitches' teeth out. She's fucking stepping to people. She's hitting on every attractive black man in this movie, and there's a lot of them. She's just fucking wilding. If you want to see Glenn Close fucking wilding, have a crack at this movie. I don't recommend watching this if you actually want a seriously good horror film. This is not a good serious horror film, which is a fucking shame because it's sort of worse because it tries to be serious and it's not good. Like, I'm okay with movies that know that they're shit in a way. This is not one of them. If you want a good, if you're like, God, I love exorcists and exorcism films, I love that shit, stay away from this one. This is not a good one. The horror is bad in this one. I'm sorry. I hate to be the bearer of bad news. I'm bummed because I really wanted to watch this as the family drama is really good, but this just ends up a fucking mess. So, but I mean, that's what I do. I watch the trash so you get to watch the treasure. But there's not a lot to this film that I can really recommend, to be honest, which fucking blows. It sucks. I love Lee Daniels, but this is real bad. If you wanted to like this, like I did, and you want a good exorcism film that is fun and a bit silly, The Pope's Exorcist. The Pope's Exorcist with Russell Crowe, if you somehow haven't seen that, that is the best fun exorcism film that's come out in the last 10 years. It's a bit silly. Russell Crowe's doing a really funny Italian accent. It's fucking, but it sucks you in straight away. You listen, you want to see front row Russell Crowe giving demons the fucking hoodus. It doesn't get better. It doesn't get better. As far as fun, silly exorcism films go, The Pope's Exorcist. If you're looking for a horror movie that takes classic horror themes and successfully puts them into like a new setting, I highly recommend The Angry Black Girl and Her Monster. I have a review on it. I'll link to it. It's about a genius teenage girl who she lives in a ghetto with lots of drugs and violence. She loses her brother in a shootout, So she decides to remake him Frankenstein style. It's fun. There's some actual really gross bits, and it still has the similar themes to The Deliverance. Like there's lots of intergenerational trauma, talking about violence against kids, like all that sort of stuff. But it does the horror better than this one. So if you are looking for something that has the same sort of themes but does the horror better, The Angry Black Girl and Her Monster, it's fucking great. It's really, that's the best, probably the closest one. Obviously, you've got Get Out and Us. They're also could be in here, but I assume most people have seen them. That's it. I mean, it's a shame. Not everything can be a banger, but yeah, fuck. God. If you do watch this, let me know what you think of Glenn Close's performance, because it's truly fucking wild. It's one of the wildest things I've seen this year, and I watch some wild shit. As always, thanks for watching. Hope to see you next week for another review. Peace.